teacher self-fulfilling prophecies and positive classroom management. And then for most of the second hour, we're going to get to have a little bit of a discussion. We're going to put you in breakout rooms and discuss the case studies that I already sent and maybe a couple other things as well. Okay. Can you go to the next slide?
Yes. Oops.
And before we start telling you things, we want you to try to think for yourself first. If you, and this one, don't write in the chat box yet. So this I want you to write either on a piece of paper or if you have your computer open on a Word document or in a note or whatever, but write it down somewhere. 3 rules or principles that you would like to introduce to your class. So what are the 3 most important things that you want your class to follow? Again, we're going to give you a couple minutes for this, so take your time. And if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat box, but we're going to just let you write quietly for a minute.
You'll be joining the school in the middle of the semester, so it might not be the first time for everybody to meet, like the teachers and students already met with each other. However, you can still have some basic principles that you want the kids to know when they interact with you.
Is that about 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Right.
30 seconds.
Right, so we're going to come back to that later, so keep that handy. And let's go on to the next slide, talking about expectations. Not quite yet. There's a quote next.
Next slide. I am kind of stuck in Zoom. I have to jump out to go to the next slide. Okay.
Teaching online is fun. Okay, so this one, tell us in the chat box the next one more. See. Okay, so in the chat box first, before we talk about it at all, how would you define classroom management? So go ahead and type what in a couple words, could be a full sentence, could be a couple words. What do you think classroom management is? Anyone? Oh. Okay, great. Providing and upholding norms for a healthy learning environment. Perfect. Productive and nurturing learning environment. Harmony. Great. Educational cohesion. Structure and skill sets to move the class through a lesson. Great, these are great ideas.
And supportive.
Yes. Right, I like the emphasis on the supportive and trying to encourage a learning and respect and a good environment for learning. That's great. So that maybe a traditional view might just be discipline, keeping the kids in line, but it's also important to think about all these other things as well, which is easier said than done sometimes, but we'll try our best. How about the second question? Okay, what classroom management challenges do you expect to encounter in your school?
If you had read the 3 case studies, you might have an idea of what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Don't be scared off by the case studies. Miscommunication, cross-cultural miscommunication for sure.
Language barrier.
They might misunderstand. Something that you see as rude might just be a cultural difference, for example. What other things?
Our activities aren't going to work.
Right. Yeah. A lot of teaching, honestly, is trial and error, and it's just seeing what kind of works, and then what doesn't work, and then adjusting in the moment or adjusting afterwards as well. Yeah, kids who are uninterested in learning English can be a very difficult challenge because that could be a lot of your students. They might not see the relevance of it immediately, or they might just be turned off on school completely. So that's one of the challenges, but also one of the exciting things about being in an ETA is you can kind of make English more fun for them and more motivating. All right, and the last question for now, what classroom management strategies have you heard of, seen, or used? So this could be in something that you've read about teaching, or it could be a teacher that you've had. And these can also be successful ones or unsuccessful ones. What tell us about a teacher that did a horrible job when you were a student, or one that you really liked? So strategies, like something specific that a teacher did or can do to manage the classroom better. Great. Okay. Gold stars or some sort of prize redemption system. That's very common in Taiwan. And we'll talk about that as well later. What other things? Excellent. Callback strategies. So we call those attention getters. And we'll talk about some of those as well today. What else? Could be good strategies, bad strategies. Classroom contracts. Okay. One more. No? Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
Okay. No purposeless actions.
Excellent. Yeah, it's always important to be aware of why you're doing what you're doing. Right. You don't need to tell the student every single thing why you're doing every single thing, but there should be a sense of transparency. They should understand why you're doing most of what you're doing. Right. And let's look at the next slide. So this is a quote from the president of NASDA, which is the National Association of State Directors of Special Education. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, we teach, punish. Why can't we finish the last sentences automatically as we do the others? So what do you think about this quote? Why do you think I chose this one? So often when our instinct when we see a child misbehaving is to punish them, but really we need to calm down. Maybe you want to scream at them. We're angry. They didn't do what they were supposed to do, but we should be calm and take time to really teach them how to behave instead of just punishing them. Okay, so the next slide. Right, not judgmental. Excellent. It's not something that can be directly taught, of course, but we should try to teach them in a supportive way how to react to certain situations, or what is considered appropriate behavior and what is inappropriate behavior.
And think of their behaviors as educational opportunities for them, instead of something that you don't like or something that will make you frustrated.
Okay, the next slide. So some things that we can teach, we want to establish classroom expectations and norms. So the students should understand what to expect from you. They should be in a comfortable situation where they know they're not going to have any huge surprises, negative surprises in the class, that you're going to respect them, but that they're expected to do certain things. And a lot of that is something that you need to take some time to teach. So for example, especially if you're going to be doing all of your classroom management in a language these students don't speak very well, it's important to take the time to teach classroom language. So that might seem like you don't have time for all of that because you need to be working on chapter 3 already. But if you find that the students don't know the classroom language, hopefully they will have studied it already at the beginning of the semester while you're still in the US. But if they don't, then make sure that you take the time to teach certain phrases that you commonly use in class, such as get out your books, raise your hand, talk to your partner, go back to your seats, pay attention, things like that. They should know what you mean in English as well. And then also take time to teach your rules and expectations. So discuss with your LET first what kind of rules they use in the classroom. And you could choose to use exactly the same ones, in which case maybe their LET says them in Chinese and then you go over them in English. Or you could also choose your own. So it could be a slightly different set of rules that they know apply whenever the ETA is there. And keep it short and simple, especially if you're teaching elementary school, but even junior high. You don't want to have a lot of big, difficult words that they might not quite understand. So keep it simple and short and with pictures if possible. And you might have a poster or something visible that you can keep in the classroom all the time, and you can refer to it every once in a while when a student is maybe not following one of those rules or a borderline. You can remind them of the rules. Some of you will be teaching in an English classroom, so you will have your own classroom for the whole week, and the students will come to you. In that case, it would be a good idea to put these rules on the wall somewhere of your classroom. And if you are, if you go to the students' homerooms, which is the other option, if you don't have an English classroom, you'll be traveling to all of the different homerooms, then you might just want to keep a short, like maybe an A4 size, maybe laminated or something, and bring it with you. And then you can pull it out whenever you need it. But if you're going to start referring to it, make sure you spend some time teaching it at the beginning as well. In an ideal situation, you're going to be teaching these on the first day of school, which already happened. So keep in mind that your LETs are, they've already established some rules, and you're jumping in the middle of the semester, but the classroom management is not all on you. So it's a partnership with your LET, which can be very helpful and also could also have some problems in itself. But make sure you're mostly on the same page with your LET, and work together to establish these expectations. Another thing, as one of you mentioned in the chat already, teach attention getters. So attention getters are a way to call the attention of the class back to you, to focus on you again, or to focus on moving forward. You can use these when the class is very rowdy, or when things are just starting to get a little bit out of control. Students are getting excited about something you said, and are maybe being a little bit too noisy or distracted. Then you can use one of these to call the attention back. And it works much better than screaming at the kids or anything else. So there's a lot of different ones you could choose, but stick to maybe one or two so that the students are, they know what to expect. So don't try to teach 15 in the same day, but teach 1 or 2 of your favorites, and we'll look at those in a second. Just before I show you those, does anyone have any examples in the chat of something you could say? A teacher says something and the students respond, and then that's a signal for everybody to pay attention. Great, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Anything else?
Why it's important to have certain expectations and norms is that rules don't seem as much as fun, but under these rules, the environment of a classroom can be predictable for kids, and that sometimes is a major source of where the sense of safety and sense of being comfortable come from. So this is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, and oftentimes
sequence.
when yeah, right. So you have a lot of the same ideas that we have some other ones too we'll look at. And then be transparent and consistent about rewards and consequences. So the students should know why they're being rewarded and why they're being punished, or why they have some sort of consequence for their action. And then be consistent. So it should be clear that this reward is for this behavior, not because you like this student, and this consequence is for this bad behavior, not because you don't like that student. And then you should follow through with what you say that you're going to do. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Okay, so Ting, do you want to be my student?
Okay.
And so these are some attention getters. Some of them that you already mentioned, but like class.
Yes.
Yes. Attention.
1, 2.
And then holding up a sign could be something like some ETAs like this one. It's a silent coyote, or it could be like holding your hand and putting your finger to your mouth, or whatever the sign is, as long as it's not like, check with your LET to make sure it's not rude in Taiwan. But any kind of sign could work. Put a bubble in your mouth. A bubble means that you go like this, which means you can't talk. Eyes on me.
Eyes on you.
Or like Sam said, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Hands on top.
Everybody stop.
Everybody stop. And then you put your hands on your head. So you can't be writing, you can't be playing with your neighbor, you can't be doing anything. You have to put your hands on your head. Clapping in a rhythm. The most famous one has a name. I don't think it has a name in English, but it has a name in Chinese. It's called Encouragement of Love. Aida Uli. So do you want to try? Okay. Yeah. Okay, for example. But as long as your students are aware of this, and you can make it into a game when you're first teaching it. So you could have them purposely be loud, and they love to be bad when you tell them to be bad. So they could be loud, and then you say the attention getter, and then they all have to respond immediately, and then they can be loud again, and then you can try again, as an example of a way to teach this one. Next slide. All right, so rewards and consequences. You should have a clear idea, a clear understanding of what kinds of rewards and consequences you have in your repertoire, and a lot of this is going to be your LAT that's actually going to be doing a lot of the rewarding and the punishing, but it's still important that you know what you're allowed to do, and what works with the students. So the best way is probably to observe and to talk to your LAT. And then the students should also be aware of what kinds of things might happen to them if they do something good or if they do something bad. And another important thing to remember is that we don't want to give rewards all the time, because it will develop the students' external motivation at the expense of their intrinsic motivation, which means that they'll only be working for the rewards. And as soon as you stop giving the rewards, they will stop wanting to work. So if you promise a reward, give it, but don't always promise a reward. You could say, maybe there'll be a reward with this activity. Maybe you'll get a star, and maybe they will, or maybe they won't. Or at the end of class, you could say, oh, you were especially good today, and give extra points or something. But don't make it a habit to do it every single day for every single activity that they do well. Here are some possible rewards that you might use, you might not. Some are better than others in certain situations, but it's good to be aware of what's possible. You could, of course, praise the student directly. Or Ting, you were saying with the students, the teacher gets the class to shine.
Yes, if a student does something really nice, the whole class, teacher would ask the whole class to give up some shine. And it's very cute, especially lower grade kids. They absolutely love it. And it's a way for them to feel good about themselves and get attention, and it's free.
Right. I'm a big proponent of free things. I don't like teachers having to buy a lot of things for their students. So it's something like giving them attention or clapping, or you don't want to have the class always giving praise and attention to the best English students, because that might create resentment and might increase the frustration of the students who don't speak English as well. But in certain situations, giving praise from the whole class or from the teacher is a great reward as well. Points work really well for younger kids. You can have different teams. So it could be in elementary school, depends on the class, but in general, they often sit in groups of tables. So maybe like 4 to 6 students probably per table. So teachers often will use that to call on this team or that team, and to give them individual points. So if everybody is, if you need to get out their textbook, you could say, okay, get out your textbook, and then you give a point to the team that's the fastest. And that, even if you don't do anything else with those points, that can help so much in terms of getting the students to hurry up and get their books ready. So give a point to the first team and give a point to the second team, and then wait for the third team, and then you can give them a point too. So maybe in the end, everybody gets a point anyway, but it still will give them some sense of urgency that they need to not take a lot of time doing something that they should be doing. And stars and stickers. So it could be on a chart or somewhere that they can see visibly. It could be like a sticker star, or it could just be like a pen star if you don't have the stickers. Often those are used for working towards something. So like someone mentioned in the chat as well, like a reward exchange situation, where if you get X number of stars, you can do something special. Some teachers, your LET might already have a system for this. Some teachers will have an exchange policy for something specific. So if you get 50 stars, they'll buy you 1 bubble tea. Or if you get this, then you can not do your homework for 1 day or something like that. Talk to your LET about what's appropriate there. Candy, tea, or other food is an option. Not something you want to rely on a lot for a variety of reasons. A, it's expensive. B, the students might have allergies, or you don't want to give them especially unhealthy food too much. But it is pretty common in Taiwanese schools to use food as a reward. So maybe on a very special occasion, or if you have some candy from the US, or something that they might not have tried, then that might be a good reward as well. Kids always like stationery supplies, especially ones that have something related to something that they like a cartoon or Avengers or Frozen or something. So that could be, you could have one reward for a very, very special occasion, for example. And then it could be some sort of thing that they're working towards the end of the year, like a party or a special activity. If the whole class gets X number of points, then on the last day of the semester, they can watch a movie, or they can play some game, or do karaoke with English songs or something like that. And that's great for getting the whole class to work together, so that you can use peer pressure. And if some students are misbehaving, then you can take points away, and then the rest of the class will be invested in wanting to get those students to be on the right page again, because everybody is working towards that goal at the end of the year. It could also be a privilege, so it doesn't have to be something physical. It could be getting to go first in a game, or it could be getting to choose first when they're drawing, and they can choose what color pencil they want or what color paper they want. Or if they're doing a role play, they get to pick the role first, or they're playing a game, they get to pick the character in the board game first. So that could be a reward. And when you're giving that, verbalize it. Say, Ting worked very hard this week. She learned, she improved a lot. So I will let her choose her color pencil first. Could be getting to choose a game. Maybe you have 2 games and you really don't care which one it is. You could have the team that has more points, you could have them choose, for example. Or maybe you have a couple minutes left and you wanted to play an English song. You could let, if a student who normally misbehaves, but today they were really good, you could let them pick up the song that you're gonna listen to as a class. And then the last one, getting to spend the last 5 or whatever minutes of class doing homework. This one I don't use too often, but if you do, it's a great reward for doing something quickly if you do it well. So for example, if you have an assignment that they're supposed to be working on in class, and some students are doing it faster than others, you can have it, don't necessarily call it a reward per se, but it would be a motivation to have them be more focused and working on it. If they know that if they work faster, then they'll have more time to work on their homework. And elementary school students, especially upper elementary school students, do have a lot of homework. So they are very motivated by trying to squeeze in a few minutes to get some of it out of the way before they go home. So if you use this, then they might be less likely to goof around when they're supposed to be doing something. They can get it done, and then they can have a few minutes to do some homework at the end of class. And then another fun one is for you to do something special if the class achieves a certain goal. So again, that could be if they all do their homework, or if they all get a certain number of points, or something that you want them to do. If they can get through the whole class without you having to use an attention getter or something like that. You could give them a specific goal in advance, and then tell them that you're going to do something special. And you can tell them beforehand what it's going to be, and they'll really want to see whatever it is. It could be like you could do a dance, which they will love to see, whether you're the best dancer or the worst dancer, they don't care. You could do a cartwheel, you could sing a song, or you could show a silly picture of yourself, or a picture from when you were their age. Or you could play with them during the break, play volleyball or badminton or basketball or cards or whatever else. So that's a fun, cheap way to build rapport and to reward good behavior as well. And the next one. All right, some possible consequences that you might see. One consequence is just that they don't get the reward that other people get. So other people get stars and they don't get stars because they didn't do the thing that would have gotten them stars. You could also take points or stars away, or you could take privileges away. So a privilege could be getting to go first, or getting to sit in your favorite seats, or getting to choose your partner in an activity, things like that. Removal from a game or activity, obviously you'd want to use this when they're being very disruptive during the game. You could have a timeout, and that's also helpful when there's two teachers, because you can, one of the teachers can continue the game while the other one is dealing with the student or students who was removed from the game. If there's more than one or two that are very disruptive during the game, you might want to stop the entire game and talk to the class about why they need to follow the rules. Make sure they understand the rules, and that's not the reason for the misbehavior. And then ask them if they're ready to try again. And if they are, then you can try again. Give them one more chance. And if not, then after a second chance, then you might want to stop the game again and move on to something a little bit less fun, with an explanation for why you're doing this. Some teachers might also ask for a written apology, which in first grade English is not going to be a whole page, but maybe it's a picture or something like that. Some other punishments you might witness your LETs or other people in the school doing, but I would advise against these. Would be screaming at the students, can be somewhat common. Some teachers will make their students do something physical as a punishment, so running laps, doing push-ups or squats, which is also not recommended. Students might be made to stand up in class, so maybe they forgot their homework, so the teacher makes them stand up for the first 10 minutes of class or something, or giving extra homework. Extra homework is a punishment that they respect and that they don't like. So they will do lots of things to get out of this one, but it also creates the link of homework and studying as a punishment, which is not something that we want to encourage. And we want to make English fun, and we want to encourage them to study because they care about learning things, not because it's a punishment. So I wouldn't recommend that one as well either. Yeah, next one. Okay. Besides the details of giving rewards and punishments, it's really important to understand your students as much as possible. And this is something that will take some time, but especially if you have a lot of students. But it will go a long way to improving classroom management, especially if you can build a positive rapport with your students. So your students should see you as someone who cares about them as people, there's an R missing, wants them to learn and do well, and is on their side, not as an adversary out to get them. So you are there to help them, and you want them to do well. You don't enjoy punishing them. You like, you genuinely praise them and like to see them do well. And building this rapport is something that can be done in the class and also out of the class. You'll spend a lot of time at school, and you might see your students outside of the classroom as well. Some ETAs in the past have tried a variety of different ways to give their students a chance to come talk to them, or to make themselves more approachable for the students. So for example, some ETAs have had a teacher mailbox where they have a little box on their desk, and the students can write whatever they want to them, or they could just be a drawing, it could be whatever. And sometimes it's in Chinese, and that's okay, even if the ETA doesn't understand. And then the ETA will write back maybe will draw something back or will ask their LAT, what did this one say? And then give a short response. And that can also go a long way to improving the rapport between the students. Or some other ETAs have had a sticker board that of questions or of things that the students can do during the break time. So just for extra English practice, which can help the students feel more comfortable coming to talk to you. You can also play with them during the break, or just simply smiling a lot. Even though you're wearing a mask, you can still see that you're smiling. So your attitude inside and out of class can go a long way. Learn what they care about and don't care about. So this is important both in terms of building rapport and also, for lack of a better word, in terms of manipulating them. It can help to know what they like and what they don't like. So this should inform your choices about what rewards and consequences you give, as well as the class content. So if you're teaching 9th grade, giving a star is probably not going to make a big difference in terms of their behavior, because they probably won't care very much about a star. But if they care about something specific and you can use that in the class content, then they'll be much more motivated. So this could be, obviously it will vary greatly by age. It might vary by class. So some groups have a different personality as a class. And it can also, of course, vary by individual. So you might have a few options. So if you're giving out stickers, don't make them all be frozen stickers, because not all of your students will like that, for example. And then try to understand the root causes of any behavior problems that you see. So instead of being angry with them, try to understand why they're behaving in this way. And sometimes you can ask them directly, but that might be difficult with, especially with the language barrier. But some good ways to address this are to try to minimize and remove any distractions. So if a student is very distracted, you could have them sit in the front of the class. And sometimes, I worked with an LAT that had a special desk in the front where students could sit if they were being distracted, and it was kind of a punishment, but sometimes the students would recognize that they needed to pay more attention themselves, and they would ask to sit there so that they could focus more. So don't paint it as a punishment, but show them that this is a way to help them be more successful, because you're minimizing the distractions. Teach them the skills that they're lacking. So that could be English skills, and could also be social skills, or things like, how do they deal with boredom? How do they deal with someone talking while they're supposed to be paying attention? So those trying to address these things will help a lot more than just punishing the behavior. And then lastly, be aware of students' special needs. So you might need to talk to some other people at the school to get a better idea of what's going on with different students. Some things you'll be able to notice by yourself. And often during the year, we'll have a workshop, at least one workshop, about special needs students. And so try to talk to the LAT or the student's homeroom teacher or special education teacher for ideas on how to deal with these students. At the very least, try to be understanding, and try to pay attention to where they might need some extra help. This could be something like giving them extra time, or giving them a special timer so that they know that they have to work for 3 minutes on something. and then they can focus for those 3 minutes. In Taiwan, a lot of times special needs are somewhat stigmatized, so parents will sometimes be in denial and not want to get their students tested. So if a student might not have an official diagnosis, but you might still notice that they might be, for example, they might have ADD or be on the autism spectrum, for example. Next slide, please. All right, and lastly, maintain the appearance of fairness. Why do I put appearance there? Because sometimes it's more important to appear fair than to be fair. So sometimes you are fair, but it doesn't look like it, and you haven't taken the time to show your students that you really are fair. And sometimes you're not being fair, but it doesn't matter as long as the students think that you are. Fairness is something that students care greatly about, especially in the lower grades. So follow through with promises and consequences. So if you say you're going to give X reward, then give X reward. If you say you're going to give X consequence for Y behavior and Y behavior happens, then give X consequence. If there's some reason why you don't want to, you change your mind, or you're unable to do this, you've promised that they can sing a song at the end of class, but then you run out of time. Or you've said you're going to do something as a consequence and they did the behavior, but you don't really want to give them that consequence, then give an explanation and an alternative for why you're not going to do this. So it could be, I'm sorry we ran out of time today, but we'll play the song first thing tomorrow. Or I said if you did this behavior, I was going to do this, but I'm going to give you one more chance. Is that okay? Do you want one more chance to make sure that to try to do it better this time, so that they know that you haven't forgotten about the promise that you made. Don't just ignore it and hope that they forget to. So you can kind of renegotiate if you need to, but don't just ignore what you've promised. Another thing that's really important is to admit your mistakes. So we're all human and we all make mistakes, and it's good for them to see that behavior modeled, that when you make a mistake, it could be a mistake about English, it could be a mistake about you went to the wrong class, or you told them to do page 7, but then you really wanted them to do page 9, for example. Don't pretend like you were right all along. Admit that you were wrong and or that you don't know something, and then try to come back later with a solution or the thing that you didn't know. But that can go a long way towards having mutual respect. The next two involve verbalization, which again can be easier said than done in a foreign language for a 6-year-old. So sometimes this might need a lot of extra body language or clear language and motions, examples to show the student what you mean. And sometimes you can also get your LAT to help you with explaining this more clearly in Chinese. But it's important to verbalize why you are giving certain privileges or taking certain privileges away from certain students. So again, like saying Ting was very well behaved today, so she can choose the colored paper first, for example. And it should be specific. So it should be about today, not about, oh, he's a bad kid, so I'm not going to let him do something. But today he did this, or today he was focusing well, or today he was doing something good or bad. And then also verbalize, or even better is to ask students to verbalize why you are punishing them or why they're getting some sort of negative consequence. It's a good idea to ask the students, because sometimes they don't actually know. You think that you've made yourself clear, but sometimes they don't really understand what they did that made you upset or that you didn't like. So that can help you understand what's going on in their mind a lot more, and it can also help them to clarify specifically what behavior is not appropriate and where they need to fix it. And if you can, you could also talk about what they could do next time too. But this is maybe something that you might want to have your LAT help you with as well. And then another thing to remember is students more readily accept random as fair compared to the teacher choosing something. So if you're always choosing who goes first and you're choosing it, even if it's exactly 50%, then everyone in the class will think you chose the other team first more, because that's just human nature, is to assume that the other, even if something is totally equal, you think that the other person is getting more than you. So making things random is a great way to make things seem very fair. So you can use dice, for example, or rock, paper, scissors is the ultimate decision maker among elementary school students in Taiwan. It's the fairest way to make any decision, is just to have them play rock, paper, scissors, and they will totally accept this as fair. So if you're deciding who goes first, or if you're deciding who gets to sit next to Ashley, or who gets to do whatever, and there's two situations, then rock, paper, scissors is a great way to make that decision quickly, and then you won't get a lot of complaints from the students about, oh, teacher, that's not fair, teacher, why? And then when you're playing games, design games that aren't always won by English level. You're going to have a very wide range of English levels in your class, and some of them have studied English at cram schools. Some of them maybe didn't have great teachers in the past, or they have some learning disability, or any number of reasons why the levels are very different. And you want to encourage them to use English and to learn more English, but you also don't want to have the cram school kids win everything all the time. So if you can design some games that aren't won by English level, that would be great. So for example, you have to get it right to get any points, but the number of points depends on rolling the dice. And then, so maybe in that case, it's more fair. Everyone is likely to have a chance to win that game. Okay, so you've probably seen this picture before or something like it. Equality and equity are not the same thing. And being fair does not mean treating your students in exactly the same way. So you might want to give certain students extra time on things, or to give them extra attention during class, or to give them more difficult assignments too. And that will actually be one of Ting's workshop this semester, is on differentiated instruction. But it's important to build that trust with your students, and so that they understand that you are there to help all of them, and that you're on their side and you want them to do well. And if you can do that, then they'll be much more likely to accept that it's normal that this student gets more help because they need it this time. 2 weeks ago, I needed more help, so I got more help. And then later, someone else might need some extra help, or some extra attention or time, or something like that. So if you can build that rapport with your students, and that those expectations, then the students will be more likely to understand that you're not favoring certain students over others just because you're responding to their special needs.
Okay, and then it's my turn to share, I would say, broader ideas when it comes to classroom management. Um, Classroom management can be very intimidating. I have found myself standing in front of a class many times, not knowing what to do with a bunch of kids going out of control. That is most likely going to happen, but the thing is, we don't want you to get too worried about that, because this is a long-term practice and it's flexible. As long as you keep and reflective mind, then you'll get better and better the more you do it. So the first thing I want to talk about is, before you become a teacher, you're first a human. And when I was standing in front of a classroom in front of a class that's going out of control, what I was thinking was, I wish I were someone different, or I wish I were that type of teacher that seems to be very successful. I thought a lot about that, in especially my first year of teaching. And then I tried so hard to become someone else that was not me. I tried to learn from other teachers and try to use their styles, their punishments, their ways of encouraging students. But then at the end of the day, I found that I wasn't happy teaching, and it kind of created more stress for me because I wasn't being me. So the first thing I would like to share with you is that you need to understand yourself first, what you're good at and what kind of situations you're most uncomfortable with. Knowing that would help you to choose the best teaching style that you can use and you can learn. There are several different teaching styles. As you can see on the screen, some people are born natural lecturers. No matter how boring the materials are, they make it sound so much fun. Some people, they're better at demonstrating. Then some people, they are very good at facilitating learning, empowering students. There's not a universal style of teaching, so you can think about what you're good at doing and find one or two different styles to try and mix them up a little bit. But yeah, don't do anything that you personally are not comfortable with. Be yourself. And so that the students get to know you and you'll build a way more genuine relationship. Next slide. That being said, being a teacher, you have more than just a role of teaching. Depending on the situations you're in, who you're interacting with, you will find your roles changing all the time. When you're working with your co-teacher, you can be a lesson designer, your planner. When you're using technology, you feel like you're a technician, you're an editor. And depending on the activities you're leading in class, you can be a critique, you can be a collaborator, a salesperson of knowledge. All these different roles are roles that a teacher can be. So being a teacher is really, how can I say, you don't need to limit yourself into just a couple certain roles. It's very flexible, and you gotta be in the right role when it comes to a certain situation. So I think teachers are many different roles, and you can think about what your ideal roles for a teacher is. To create a positive learning environment, both for the teacher and for the students, this is something that we tend to talk about a lot in education and classroom management. Everybody has heard about self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I'm gonna see if people are nodding. Yes, yeah, it's a thing in education too, and we call it, I'm really bad at pronouncing this word, but Pygmalion effect. he was an ancient Greek person. This story, this effect originated from this story when Pygmalion was trying to build this perfect sculpture of a woman. It's the most beautiful, it's the perfect woman. And he absolutely believed in that. So as he builds that sculpture, you can see that's a picture to show you the story. He fell in love with that lady. And due to his super high expectation and his love to that lady, the ancient Greek gods heard him, noticed him, then they made that sculpture come to life. And then it's a happy ending story. So that story, this name came from that story. And it basically is trying to say that when you have high expectations, you have better results, self-fulfilling, and vice versa. So your prediction and expectations for your students really do matter a lot. Researchers have shown that if a teacher thinks a student is very slow, they eventually will come to believe that they're very slow, and it will result in them learning slowly. If you think very highly of them, you believe in their potential, it's very likely that they will rise up to the expectation and they will achieve so much better than they believed. So this is not something very practical. It's more of a mindset that it's very key for teachers to remember this. Your opinions do matter, and everybody has been a student before or still a student now, and we all want the teacher to think really highly of us. Everybody wants to be liked by the teacher. So these small things do matter when it comes to interacting with kids, especially younger kids. When you first enter school, it will be in the middle of the semester. So teachers and students, they already had some time to get to know each other. I believe that the local teachers will be more than willing to share their opinions or what to think about with the students. Do take their opinions into account, but with a grain of salt. For students meeting you for the very first time, it's also like a new opportunity for them to start over. They get this new chance to build their own relationship with you. So take what the other people said into account, but look at them with a fresh perspective and get to know them by yourself as well. There are 5 assumptions, broader ideas again, when it comes to positive classroom management. When we talk about a positive classroom management, we don't mean that everything has to be super happy, hyper, and everyone's just having fun. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It means that every mistake, every issue is being tackled with a positive attitude. It's being seen as a learning opportunity. Everybody can work on this to fix it and get better. That's what it means when we talk about this. We want to assume that every student is unique. I just realized this is the first time that everybody is from the Eastern region. We're not with any other region. So in Eastern region, we have diverse cultures. You'll be so amazed by how diverse the cultures are here. So underneath this idea, every student is unique. A lot of them will have their own culture background. So be mindful of that. And number 2 and number 3, everyone is in the school to learn. And elementary school and junior high school level are so key to for students to build up kind of their personality, and they really need to be encouraged to try different things and to make mistakes. So make sure that they're there to learn from their mistakes. And although it gets super frustrating when you see a class going out of control. Remember that there's always a positive way to manage the situation. We're not necessarily able to react in a positive way right away, but have this meta thought in your head that this situation, although I'm not able to manage it the perfect way, there is always a way, and we don't want to give up very quickly. We think about this later, and when it happens again, we'll deal with this in a positive way. And lastly, don't let school get in the way of students' education. We have so many objectives and goals for students to achieve: getting good grades, winning the reader theater, winning the contest. However, these are all means that we want to use to get students to learn. So the ultimate goal of us being there is really to provide them good quality education, and education is our ultimate goal. So other games, other points and scores, they're just not as important. All right, and then moving on, we're going to share more specific examples of how small things that we can do to make students feel entirely different. So first of all, we have two sentences. Imagine you come into school and you see Shayna. She used to run a lot in the hallway. Here are two ways to talk to her. Please just share with me, how do you feel? You can unmute. You can unmute yourself or raise your hand or type in the chat box, whichever you think is faster. Okay, not a fan of A. Me neither, but you know, yeah, why? Tell me why. Why you're not a fan of A? How might Shayna feel? What are your assumptions when you say this?
I feel like A assumes the worst of Shayna and B is giving her the opportunity to do the best.
Exactly. Was that Helen? Thank you, Helen. Perhaps Shayna wasn't even running, but you just assumed that she was going to run. If I was Shayna, I would be really kind of feeling that I was denied a chance to be better that day. These things really do make a difference on young kids' mind. They really do care about how you think of them. How about B? What is something that B does differently or shows it? What are something? B, A's language is negative, yes, and its core is about shaming. Yeah, something that students can be scared by or impacted by negatively. Exactly. A demonstrates that a teacher does not have high expectations for Shayna. Wow, you guys are learning very well. B pays attention to what the student is actually doing. Yes, I am sure as a teacher, when you say things to the students, it always comes from a good place. You want them to be better. You want them to improve. However, the things that you say can show your assumptions, your intent, your attitudes and your expectations for the student. For B, it shows that you are genuinely happy that Shayna is here. For a lot of the kids, making it to school is a very big first step, and you recognize that. Then you're commenting on her behavior, that she's walking. So this way you're reinforcing a positive behavior that Shayna would know, if I walk safely in the hall, I make Miss Megan very happy. Then she will be very likely to do this again. And yes, I like what Matthew said as well. You always want to comment on a behavior and not to comment on the person, I think. if that makes sense. You don't want to deny a person by something that he or she does. So moving on, we want to avoid accusational language. The second one, threats, is very interesting. Megan and I had a good chat about that. It's hard to avoid threats, but perhaps we don't say that they are threats. It's more like a trade or encouragement of behavior. So instead of saying that if you don't do this, I will punish you, you can use a more positive language to say, doing your homework is very important. It shows Ms. Ting how well you're learning. So if you can do this first thing, then you won't have to stay after class. Ms. Ting won't have to stay after class with you, something like that. So you're making this deal with them constantly, but don't make it seem like a threat. And of course, authoritarian orders, and don't just lecture them on it, go lecturing on and on. And the next one, comparisons. I think everybody dislikes comparisons. How many of you have siblings in the same school that's close to your age? And how many of you would hate to be compared with your siblings? Oh, your older brother is so much smarter than you. Oh, your younger sister would never do that. Why are you running in the hallway? You're so different. These are just negative language and unproductive because you're only denying that student that you're talking to and hurting them at the same time. And then next one, sarcasm, especially in Taiwan. Most of the time, they probably won't know what you're talking about because of the language barrier. In this situation, using sarcasm is not the best idea. If you say, oh, what an amazing decision that you made. How nice, when you're trying to be sarcastic, but they would actually think that you're praising them. So, and then they would get really confused. This is not good, probably not the best way to manage a class. Giving out genetic praises can work when we are supposed to use simple language. However, I would suggest everyone add something a little more specific after your generic praise. Say good job because something that you did. Nice, well done for this. So the students would understand which behavior they did that made the teacher super happy, and they will do it again. Let's do a quick exercise for the examples I listed on the right. Can anyone tell me which category does "who said you could do that" fall into? You can type or you can unmute. Accusation, yes, because the who that said you could do that will get into a lot of trouble. Let's try one more. How about, this is the 5th time, typo, this is the 5th time I have explained this to you. Which category does it fall under? This is, I have told you so many times, why don't you understand? Lecturer and accusation, yes, it's kind of a mix of both. It's like you're lecturing them something that it already happened and it doesn't make it any better by repeating the fact, and also accusing them for not paying attention. Yes. On the contrary, to be able to talk in a more positive manner, we want our teacher language to be direct, descriptive, specific, and non-judgmental. This is also something that we have been talking about quite a lot, because of the language barrier, we want to make our language very straightforward and simple. By being direct, we don't want to be lengthy or too wordy. The kids only need to know the information that they need to know. And we will have to break down. Sometimes we have to break down the information by small parts so that they can understand step by step. When we want to be descriptive, we can actually describe how we are feeling or describe what the students might be feeling and use simple language to describe what had happened. This had happened. You might feel this, and I feel this. So how can we make this better? Be specific, like we just said. You can be generic and then specific so that they understand it's a positive behavior. And then non-judgmental. This is also something that we mentioned a little bit. We can accept that the student feels bad or they are going through some negative feelings. We can be empathetic for that, but we have to be very clear about what behaviors are not acceptable and separate feelings from behaviors. We want to accept them as a person and accept them for whatever they're going through, but we also want them to know these are the things that no matter in what kind of situations, they should not do. Again, these are easier said than done, I would have to admit. However, if you have these in mind, target one area at a time. Teachers are also entitled to trials and errors. So don't worry that you have to be perfect the very first time. You can choose one or two practice during your daily interaction with your students and coworkers. I find it really helpful to observe my own responses. I will try to remember what I said, or at the end of the day, I think about what I said to the kid that was not very positive, or how I could have said it in a different way. Keeping a journal might help if you have time, but most likely just to be reflective about about your interaction on a daily basis. All right, then we will let me take a look at the time. Again, what do you think? Should we do the breakout?
I don't think we have time for a breakout room. Maybe should we give them a break, and then during the break they can type their answers to this one if they can. So so go ahead and explain this slide maybe.
Okay, so let's take a break. During the break, please think of and substitute a more positive language to say when you want to address these 8 situations. You don't need to, if you don't have time, you don't need to finish all 8, but try your best to cover as many as possible. When you find a group of kids being really loud and noisy and you just want to shout, be quiet, what is the other positive language that you could say instead? And all these 8 under these 8 scenarios. So how long should our break be?
Maybe until 55.
Okay.
Is that enough time? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you have 8 minutes, but a little bit of homework to do in the break. So you can go ahead and just type in the chat, and then you don't have to put all 8 in. But if you think of number 5 first, you can write 5 and then your suggestion for that one, and try to think of at least 3 or 4. You can.
Yeah, try your best, but also try your best to drink water.
Go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Walk around, stretch. Okay, so see you in a little bit.
Yeah, 7 minutes, 6 minutes.
might want to open up right now, and just send me a message if you need it. We are going to put you into breakout rooms, and there's 3 different case studies. So if you're in, you guys are probably very good at math. If you're in breakout room 1, then you do case study 1. If you're in breakout room 2, then you talk about case study 2. 3 is 3, and then 4 is 1. So what would breakout room 7 be talking about? This would be 1 again, right? So 7 would be 1, 8 would be 2, 9 would be 3. So when we put you in breakout rooms, it'll say which room you're going to. So it'll say sending you to breakout room number 7. If you forget, it's not the end of the world if you choose a different one to talk about anyway. But we're gonna give you 10 minutes to discuss with your new partners the case study. So what, and here are some questions that you can think about. And Ting, do you wanna, or I can copy these and put them in the chat in case you're not able to see the slide during, what's it called in Google Classrooms? It's under the, it was in an announcement. Yes, thank you, Sam. So what did the, if one of the people in your group didn't get a chance to read it, then maybe you can explain quickly to them what you read. So what did the students do that was different from the ETA's expectation? What was the ETA's response? Is there a microphone on that's yeah? Team, can you turn off your microphone? And then if the ETA teaches the same lesson again, what are some things that you would suggest that they do differently before or during the class? So basically just talking about the case study and thinking about what went wrong and how could it be a little bit better. And so we'll give you 10 minutes and that should be enough time to talk about the basic things. And if you have a little bit extra time, then you can also chat a bit and get to know each other. But we do want to have, when we come back, we do want to hear from you. So have at least something to say to the whole group after you're done. Okay. So let me just paste the questions. Because I don't remember if you can see I don't think you'll be able to see this slide, but you should be able to see the chat. So we're gonna put you in 9 groups, which should be between 2 and 2 or 3 people per group.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
Okay, now you can go to your breakout rooms.
And if you have any questions, you can feel free to write in the chat or in the line group if you need any help with anything. Otherwise, see you in 10 minutes. How many people were in each group, Ting?
2 to 3. I found that group 7 only has Michael. I'm gonna move him to.
Okay.
所以他说他们资本有号码，可以先去那边住2天，等他们完成之后，他再放回去这样。然后他的确9月1号也是先在资本那边住，因为那才有状况。9月2号就是9月1号9月1号说9月2号就转好了，然后他就回去继续住到现在。
Megan, I'm not sure if I'm able to do another random grouping. So is it okay if we just keep the groups as
Sure,
they
yeah.
are?
Yeah, for sure.
月6、7。
Did you put Kevy in a group too?
Is he Fulbright Taiwan?
看是不是要多
No,
Probably.
Fulbright Taiwan.
That's Jill.
Yeah, I think he's in one of the group.
He's probably not
Oops.
paying any attention at all.
Oops.
He probably doesn't even have his. Is he in one of the groups with 2 people or 1 person or 3 people?
I don't see his name. Yeah, I don't see him in the group.
Okay. They seem talkative. They seem like they have plenty to say.
Can you see them?
No, but I mean, like just based on their.
Oh, yeah. And they have good sense of what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
因为我印象中他是
They know how to say the right things anyway.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see about it.
就是
or we have reinforced that enough,
Yeah.
good enough, so that they know what to
然
say.
后他们是跟我们说，他们接下来就要往高学区一样。
Do you think they can hear us right now?
No,
or
no,
are
they can't. No, they can't.
Okay.
然后跟他确认是不是
I don't think
Hopefully not.
Kevin is here
Okay.
because
Okay.
yeah.
He probably left the group anyway.
Yeah, and it's very late over there, and if they're on the East Coast, so I'm really
I think the West Coast is even later. Yeah, East Coast is 11. Central would be midnight, right?
Mm.
And then it's like 1 a.m. or something or 2 a.m. Is it?
No,
Not late?
West
Wait.
Coast is earlier. Right now it's I think it's like 8 or 9 over there, depending on where they are.
Yeah.
The East Coast is
Okay.
definitely close to midnight.
Yeah, East Coast should be the same.
11.
I think they're 12 hours apart. I think they're 12 hours apart, yeah. Yeah. They're young. They like to stay up late.
5 minutes, 45 seconds.
What are they gonna say? What do you think?
Yeah.
So
I'm
how much time
excited.
do you want to give for the last, like, discuss for?
How about 10 minutes? 10 to
Yeah.
15.
Yeah.
And then we wrap it up and have our final slide share.
Mhm.
And of course, we're gonna open for questions.
Mhm. How are the Hualien ETAs, Jill? How are your ETAs?
对，
I think they're doing okay.
They seem good.
It's nice to have some time to talk to them. It feels like
但是他有确定是
closer.
是的，对，
Like last year, I didn't spend that much time to talk to them, so
Uh-huh.
it feels different.
Yeah. Well, Ting and I have spent a lot of time talking at them.
Yeah,
Where
not necessarily a good thing.
we haven't had as much time to hear anything they have to say.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
对，
And how are you, Jill? You okay?
Now I'm okay.
Yeah. Good.
How are you doing?
Good.
Are you at home, Megan?
No, I'm in the office. This is the
Oh, yeah, because I
the
was
Fulbright
looking.
office.
Ah, okay. I was looking at that
Also
super tall ceiling.
Also,
and
like the study abroad in the U.S. So there's a bunch of like random U.S. flags.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Nice.
my apartment has like no natural lighting, so I look like I'm in a cave when I'm in,
慢慢了解
which is where I was the last couple of times.
OK
Not too bad.
OK，
And my
I like
computer's
your-
too old to have a digital background.
Oh, right. You'll have to have a green
Yeah,
Ah,
green screen.
wallpaper or something.
Yeah.
3 minutes. I hope they're having fun.
I'm sure they have things to talk. It sounds like some of them didn't actually read it, but that's okay because it shouldn't take that long to scan at least.
还
But
蛮多一点的，有时候就是去2楼上厕所，蛮蛮不一样。
We gave them the link again, right?
no, but Jacob asked and Sam said what it was called, and so I guess
Okay.
that's good enough. And we can mention that we're going to share the whole thing with them too. You're in the Taidong office,
Yeah,
see?
sitting next to
Ray, who I can hear
Ray.
talking.
Yeah, that's him on the phone, and Ina.
Um,
We have
Ina.
this nice 4 desk area plus 1 the long
yes,
table.
yeah.
Yeah. We're expanding our territory in this office.
Things come over to the other side.
Yeah. It feels so much different though.
Really?
It's good, and I'm not sure. It's a lot more freedom here,
Mhm.
but because everything is online now, we haven't really had that team feeling.
Yeah.
But when I'm back the other side, it's always the 4 of us. So
Okay.
that felt different. Please come to Taidong soon.
I will next week. Yeah. Freedom has its moments. I suppose it's
Do you go into the office a lot?
depends. Your maids are coming
We're
back.
back. We're back. 2 of them. I think when the time is up, they will automatically be
Mhm.
directed back here.
因为我觉得这个应该是有
So wait another 30 seconds for everybody to join us again. Did you guys meet anyone interesting in your breakout rooms?
Well, I can't say no because
Because they're here
that would
listening.
be
Good point. Good point. You can tell me later. Okay, we're still waiting for a
3
couple more.
seconds. And
Yeah.
now everyone
We've had
is
some good conversations. Thanks. Everyone's coming back. Still a few groups that are disappeared somewhere.
It says all breakout rooms will close in 19 seconds.
19.
90.
Oh, okay.
So, and I think at this point they can just come back when they finish discussing.
Okay.
But I cannot close
You
the room.
can't. Okay. Well, then everyone gets 60 seconds to think about what they want to say and take a break. So we don't have a ton of time to discuss, but we do want to hear what you guys had to say. So once everyone else comes back, we will go through the, hopefully you've read all 3. Maybe you just discussed one of them in your breakout rooms, but we'll discuss each one at a time, and the groups who discuss that one will share their ideas and thoughts. It doesn't have to be question by question answering all 4 of these questions, but some of the interesting things that you had to say. And then anyone else who was maybe not in a group that was discussing that can also chime in too. So
Everyone is back.
Everyone is back. All right.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We hope you had an interesting discussion, met someone interesting, maybe from a different county, so you can go travel and have someone to stay with. So hopefully you also had something specific that you want to share with us. So it could be answering any of these questions, including the last one, other thoughts or comments. So the groups who talked about case study 1, who would like to share some of the things that you discussed? So go ahead and unmute your microphone and say a few.
Candace and I discussed case study 1, and what we thought the biggest takeaways for us was not assuming that all of the students would know information just because it had been covered before. Because I remember like in math class, like we would always like start each year with like covering what we learned last year, and I'd always forgotten everything from the year before. And then also like if the ETA had switched up the order of activities, where he started the classroom session having everyone write down the numbers, then that could have been a way that he could have learned that like not everyone was comfortable with numbers before jumping straight into the clock activity that depended on everyone being comfortable with numbers in order to be successful. And a lot of the dysfunction could have just been avoided altogether. And yeah, that's it.
Who else
My
from group 1 has?
My group also was case 1. I was me and Jamie and Henry, and we were talking about how there should definitely be some norms that were set before the class that were to like, because some of the behavior was really kind of disrespectful to the other students and like harmful for the other students' learning. But something that could kind of help that behavior in the future would be to, if you have one or a few students that are clearly way more advanced than the others, is to have some like differentiation of practice or of like tasks or something. Maybe have an advanced task for the more advanced students to do after they finish the basic one, so that they can stay engaged as well.
I really like what Benjamin and Jacob mentioned. These 2 groups were able to think about what had happened before that lesson. So it's a very good way to think about the situation, that things could have been said, rules could have been established. And for such an eager student like him, giving him some extra tasks. Megan and I were talking about if he needs that much attention, we can also encourage him to help others, so that he knows that when he helps others, that it will make the teacher happy. Yeah.
Sometimes teachers will use like a little teacher to have one of the students help with certain things. It could also be as a reward. So if Cam was willing to try to be more respectful, then you could use that sometimes as well. Was there another group that talked about 1? And if not, does anyone else have anything that they want to add to this case study was about the one student whose English was much better, and he was always answering for everybody else and was laughing at the students who didn't know. And that's something that you might run across. Other thoughts or comments? So as you were mentioning, it's important to think about what should have happened before this lesson, but life isn't perfect, and hindsight is 2020. What things would you suggest doing after this lesson happened? So that you're already in this situation, you didn't set those norms, you didn't think about thinking about what these students know. What about next time? What are some suggestions for teaching this class the next time?
What Benjamin said to have some kind of numbers on the board, that's a very good way as well. You make it easier for the kids, for every kid to have a chance to succeed. So not just camp, and also use a different way of asking question. You don't not necessarily need to ask, what is this? You can have them play a game, show their fingers. If you say number 7, are they able to show 7? This is a much easier entry level game for them to tell you that they understand. Multiple different ways to assess their understanding.
How about case study number 2? Anyone want to share their thoughts on that one?
Sure. So just to remind people, this is the case study where Ms. Gentle tries to try the new activity that's more engaging, and it's like playing around with money. So what students did differently from what she expected, I mean, things really started to spiral when students started, taking the toys back to their seats, and then having that as a distraction. And then the ETA's immediate response was to just kind of try to use the attention grabbing thing, but that didn't really work because she misquoted it, and then one of the kids called her out on that. And then if she were to do it again, a couple of things that we talked about were replacing it with kind of like a voucher system, so like a picture of a prize instead of like an actual prize, so it's less distracting. Or if things really started getting out of hand, just shutting down the activity, and like we were talking about before, talking to the students and being like, hey, this is disrespectful, let's try this again. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Good points.
We also talked about this case study. One of our ideas was to break the class down into groups, because 28 is a lot of kids to be doing the same interactive shopping activity. So breaking them down into groups and waiting to give them the objects until after the point is established, the rules are established. And then that way, if you're breaking them up into groups of 3 or 4, they'll be more incentivized to participate respectfully, because they'll feel like they'll get more turns. If they're not competing with 27 other kids to get a turn, they're going to be more willing to do the activity correctly.
That's a really good point, that you should, even with adults, honestly, but especially with children, make sure you give the instructions first before you give them anything that they can play with or that they can be distracted with. So that you should explain clearly what's going on, model it, they should understand, and then you give them the thing that they're supposed to play with, to do something with. And yeah, I also like your idea of splitting it into groups, because anytime you have the entire class waiting for 1 or 2 people to go at a time, then that's a lot of, even if the game is really fun and they like that moment where they're playing, that's a lot of time where they're just waiting, and kids aren't great at just waiting. So it can be very distracting. Great. And there's one more group for case study 2.
What Michael said about calling it off, calling the game off is very important too. We might feel really bad to call it off in the middle of something, but it's quite necessary sometimes for you to know when to pause an activity, talk to them about your expectations. This is the part where we teach our expectations and ask them at the end, would you be willing to try again? Do you want to play this game? Let's start over one more time. So in the beginning, if you have done this effectively, then you will have a lot fewer issues to deal with later on. And planning and making a lesson plan is tricky in this way. For each step, at what timing you want to hand out your material, that seems very small, but usually plays a key role in your lesson. It can make or break. If you hand out your things too early, kids are going to be obsessed with what they're given. They're going to play with them, they're going to focus on them. So it's very hard for you to win back their attention after you have given out stuff. Yeah, so when you are making your plans, keep in mind.
One more quick comment about case study 2, the co-teaching relationship between the two. Don't be afraid to talk to your co-teacher in the middle of class. So some people might feel like teaching is a performance and you're supposed to know your role, you're supposed to know your lines, you're supposed to have prepared, and you're not supposed to lesson plan in the middle of class. Of course, it's ideal to know what's going on before, but in the middle of class, if something happens, then take 2 seconds to tell your co-teacher, hey, can you help me get them back under control? Or like, hey, like, what should I do? Or what was that class? What was that attention getter again? Can you do that for me to get their attention back? Okay, we're running out of time, but quickly, breakout 3, case study 3. Who has something to share?
Hi. Sony, you want to tag team this? Okay. So Sony and Sam and I worked on this one. And at first, to brief everyone, it simply was, not simply, but basically a student disrespected the ETA by making fun of their pronunciation of Mandarin when the ETA tried to engage them in a charade word to act out. For our group, we felt solidarity in the sense that this is a scenario that we're terrified of occurring in real life. But we also agreed that having the ground foundation of expectations and behavior and mutual respect is really important to lay out. And hopefully having that laid out would deter such behavior. But in the case that it doesn't, it's interrogating ourselves on how do we respond with kindness? How do we make sure that we don't get so defensive of ourselves that we forget that we're dealing with children? And for me personally, I really believe in the power of kind of behavior and spaces that you can enter to change behavior. So personally, I would ask the student to, I know you know, if I truly can confirm, I know you know what I'm saying. If you want to take a step out and walk around and like sit under a tree or calm down whenever you're ready to come back in and interact with me respectfully, then that's that.
Thank you.
My group also touched on the third case study. Ethan and I were discussing it a little bit, and we also shared the very real fear of this happening to us. But one of the things that we talked about was making sure that the classroom management techniques, punishment reward systems, that it's been established to the students and everyone involved, that we as the ETAs are a part of that. So the students know if they're going to disrespect us, they're going to receive whatever punishment or reward they would from the teacher as well. We aren't just another peer that is going to tattle on them if they do something wrong, that we are someone here to help them and instruct them. And as much as we want our relationship to be good, that relies on both of us and that mutual respect.
Thank you for both of those. You'll have a lot of great points. And don't forget, if this does happen, then go back to your LET and discuss it with them and think about ways that you can improve it in the future. That they're a great resource to have. In the interest of time, we don't have time for more discussion, but thank you all for your thoughts. Ting, do you want to just go over the who to ask?
Yes. Last but not least, when things happen, here are some people you can go to ask for help. Of course, your LETs, form a good team with your LETs. They can really help you. But if some issues come from the LET, don't hesitate to let Megan and I know. We will be the ones you can come to with questions. We were just talking about each school has their own politics and has their own drama. You don't really want to get into that. So if you're unsure about what to do, who to go talk to, just feel free to come to me and Megan. Of course, we have our wonderful Fulbright coordinators that are always there for you. Homeroom teachers, they can be a very good resource. In elementary school, they have their own desk in the classroom. They spend the most time with students every day, so they know everything about their family and even financial struggles, whatever personal things they will know. So go to them if you feel that you need more information on particular students. Depending on the size of school might have school counselors. These are the people who you can go ask for information on kids with special needs, even though most of them might not be diagnosed with, they might not be confirmed. But if you suspect and you're eager to find the right way to provide your help for that kid, then go to the counselors. They are the professionals. For them, they also play an important role. If your school doesn't have a counselor, then go to homeroom teachers. But if any of these situations happens, for example, you notice a student has bruises around his or her arm, or that kid is undergoing some dramatic emotional changes, is definitely being very distressed. For this type of behavioral changes or obvious problems that you think can be very serious, don't hesitate to go to the counselors. We sort of have a responsibility to report these kind of cases. So yeah, pay attention on your students and go ask for help. If things like a serious injury happens in your classroom, first thing, you can call the health center. Every classroom has a phone. If you're not comfortable, then have the co-teacher do it. Or if the co-teacher is not there, have a student to call the health center or have them run to the health center to ask for help. You might feel that you need to take care of this right away by bringing that injured kid to the health center. But we really cannot leave the whole class unattended. So ask for help, ask the co-teacher to help. If you're the only one and you have to take that kid to the health center, then knock on the door of the teacher next door. Just have someone to watch your class. You cannot just run away with the more urgent situation. It's very important. Otherwise, you might regret because things might happen with these unattended kids. Yeah, so these are the people who you can go to ask for help. We really enjoy the discussion and we are happy that we finally are talking to the Eastern group.
Get to hear a few of your voices finally instead of. Okay. Great, thank you so much. Do you want to just share that quote from the previous slide too?
Sure.
I like that one.
Today we learned some tips and tricks, some strategies. the big idea is when it comes to classroom management, it's about how we relate, how we speak to our kids, how we encourage them, we guide them, and we care for them. And I'm sure every one of you will do an amazing job. Have very good high expectation for yourself so that you will achieve way better than you thought.
Great. Thank you so much. And sorry for going a little bit over, but we will see you again in 2 days, same
days.
time. It's a different link, but same, also on Zoom. Great.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Sweet
you.
dreams.
Thank you.
Thank you.